before we get to our guest, Ben McLaughlin, also with the Huskers Radio Network, like you, I want to play from social media the clip that was the final call. Ben absolutely nailed it, and I hope it's been overwhelming, the number of people saying how much that call was perfect, because it really was. And here it is, the social team creatives for Nebraska baseball put it out on their Twitter. You can see it there. I've retweeted it. Here's that call with the video that they were able to get, and a little bit of MLB TV here on the front of it.
Set. Here's the pitch. Line drive towards second. Caden Brumbaugh there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharpe, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Just absolutely perfect in every way that it was called. And Ben joins us now. Ben, I'm sure I tagged you in something on social media on Friday night, but let me say it to you again here. Tremendous call. Thank you for that call, because I think there were a lot of Husker fans that very much appreciated that moment from you and for our friend Greg.
Yeah. To be honest with you, a lot of that game was a blur. I've been telling people innings two through 7 felt normal-ish. Once the game's happening, it was a highly competitive game and you're kind of locked into what's going on. But once it got to be about the 8th inning, I started to feel my body changing. It was hard to control my breathing and to just live in the moment. You just felt so much bigger than me. And it didn't feel like a normal circumstance. And to be honest with you, it took until a couple of hours, in fact, and a part of me didn't want to hear it back. I almost blacked out. I had no idea what I was saying. And, obviously messages were coming in about that call specifically. And I was like, I don't even really remember what I said. I just, tried to encapsulate the moment. And, that all day, of course, it was a night game. And so we sat with our feelings and we sat with processing the events all day. And, I found myself going back and forth, like, do I prepare something to say? Do I script something out? But I had this gut feeling just from the beginning that I want it all to be organic. I don't want anything to be predetermined. I don't want any of my feelings to be typed out on a piece of paper. I just want to bear it out. I just want to open it up and just say what was on my mind and on my heart. And I think, Nick, along with myself, kind of shared that same vision. And that's kind of how we approached it from that first segment on through the final out, through the end of post game, the talk with Coach Bolt. And then, of course, in typical Sharpie fashion, leads us to a victory over a ranked team. So it was a magical night. It was a magical moment. And I'm truly, truly honored to have been the one to bring that moment to Husker fans.
Ben, I was telling Kaleb, and I didn't want to tell the extent of the story until you joined us, because we did make reference to this in the broadcast in the post game. We were talking about just from the time that Greg was diagnosed, and whether it was the Jackson Brockett no-hitter, him feeling good enough that Sunday morning to call a Big Ten championship game with you in the tournament. A lot of things that seemed like there was a higher power at work. I'd mentioned this, and I know some people maybe didn't know what I was talking about. You and I experienced something that I still don't know if we've still been talking about this the last 2 days, because we don't know if we really believe what we saw. But after the end of that call, we were coming back from break. After the end of that call, where you say, Sharpie, that one was for you, it was just our booth, and no one was in our booth except for Ben and I. There was a flicker of the lights in the booth. I'm still in awe of that. I still don't know. I still can't explain it other than your description of his hand on our shoulders was spot on. And that, I think that was him fist pumping.
Yeah, that moment's kind of hard to articulate to anybody, let alone publicly, because, man, like the timing, how it happened, like truth be told, as it happened, I thought first and foremost, Nebraska's SID, Jared Meister, was playing a trick on us, flicking the lights up and down because we won. And then I looked down and he's on the field. Then I thought, oh, it's like one of those LED light shows that they do, just in the stadium. And I didn't really think anything of it until about 10 seconds after the lights had stopped flickering. I look at Nick and there's tears in his eyes. And I was like, did that really happen? And he's like, yeah, that really happened. And I think it took me a good probably hour to kind of understand what it was, just because the adrenaline's going. I'm emotional. But of anything that happened in the game, that to me was the sign that I needed from him. And there's just some things in this life that can't be explained. Greg has told me before that he doesn't believe in coincidences. And so that's his way of telling me that this isn't a coincidence. And, whether this story gains traction or not, I don't think Nick and I particularly care. But that was a moment he and I and Sharpe will share forever. And it was magical. I mean, it just kind of fit the theme of the whole night. And, I was able to share that with his family. And obviously they're looking for any sorts of comfort that they can get right now. And I think just hearing that, their husband and their father's down looking over us as they'd expect warms them up a little bit.
Ben, we had been talking about how everyone had a relationship with Greg, and for a lot of them it was through the radio, which is still extremely special to listen to him for almost the last couple decades. Or if you were listening to him on K-State, you got to hear him even longer. I had my relationship with Greg. Nick talked about his. You had a special one as well, and being a broadcast team and having that relationship. I know it's hard to explain because for those of us in this industry, it's a tough one when that relationship is no longer there physically, whether because of a profession change or in this instance, an unfortunate turn of events for you. That relationship with Greg, it sounded special on the air, and like that came through to us listening. And I know for you guys off the air, it was special as well.
Yeah, it sure was, and I think that's why we had such good chemistry on the air, is because we knew each other so well and inside and out. We knew what got each other to smile. We knew what pissed each other off. We knew what, we knew every little intricate detail of, I knew if it was windy in the booth, if he didn't have the binoculars out and his papers were blowing around, just stay out of his way. Like, just little weird things that you learn from people. And it's hard to even really explain to people. And that's maybe for me been one of the hardest things to deal with, is how ingrained our lives were together. Like he's the daily phone calls in the morning. Anytime anything happens sports related, I expect a text message from him. Anytime something happens on my end, I've caught myself multiple times in the last few days just wanting to text him, and wanting to call him and just to hear his voice one more time, to hear his thoughts about that baseball game. That's been hard to deal with. But, one thing that I always tell people is you don't really get to truly know somebody until you've either traveled with them or lived with them. And, with baseball in particular, we're around each other more than we are our own wives, it feels like at times, playing almost 60 games a year. Baseball games in themselves, it's a whole day experience. We're there 3 hours before first pitch. The games last all day, so we're together a lot. And, you just learn little things about people when you're traveling with them. And the amazing thing about Greg, and I say this just with full honesty, you spend that much time with anybody and you're excited to be by yourself, you're excited to be home, or there's little things that annoy you. I never felt that with Greg once. Like I never felt, dreading, I got to share a room with him again, or I got to sit next to him on the bus for 8 hours to Minneapolis, or man, we were together all weekend. We had Monday off, and now we have Tuesday, Wednesday, midweek games. Like, there was never a single time where I felt like I needed a break from him. And he's probably the only human that I've ever met. Sorry, Nick, that I felt that way about, you know? And sometimes it's not even about the person. It's just about you wanting to be on your own or by yourself. But I never felt that with Sharpie once. And I think that's just a testament to the type of guy that he is and was. And, you know, he was just the best, the absolute best. And, man, it's just hard to even put into words, you know, what that man meant to me and to my family.
Yeah, we're on day 5 of a road trip right now. So Ben's there's a reason he's on the other side of the hall down here. No. And, you know, Ben, we've shared this a little bit, and both on the air and obviously with each other. And I said this, I told this to you, and, you know, as you being one of my closest friends, I always talk about like the whole wedding party thing. Like, if you did your wedding again, you know, what people in your life would actually now be part of your wedding compared to who was. And there's always like a couple new additions, and Ben's in that category for me. And I never would have met Ben without Greg. His orchestrating of these broadcast teams, and it wasn't because, well, this is who I want, you guys are going to have to deal with it. Greg had that ability to understand, you know, hey, these guys will get along, or these guys together will be able to call a good game. They both get baseball, and, you know, all those things too. But also, hey, personality wise, I think they're going to have a lot of fun together. And the third member of our broadcast team, and I don't want to forget about him too, David Gustafson, that'll be with us as well. You know, the first thing he asked me, he texted me and said, hey, you think Ben will do well with David, right? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so, like, I mean, those little things about that, he wanted this to always work out. But the friendships that he was able to orchestrate too, you know, again, it's just kind of Greg doing his work that I think we all appreciated through the airwaves. But as a human being too, he was a guy that connected people too.
You know, and through it all, everything, I mean, obviously before this last year, but especially this last year, he always put others first, and he always put our radio network first. Like, he is still worried about who's producing the game. He's worried about me getting my reads in. He's worried about, you know, taking network out cues when we're going to extra innings and not local out cues. Like, he was so with it and just so on top of it, and always looking out for everybody. I mean, even until the last 2 weeks, when, man, if people only knew what he had to do to get himself on the air, you know, the last couple of weeks, last month. It's because, not because he felt like he had to, it's because he wanted to. And, you know, I can say this now because he's not here to yell at me, but I had to tell him, like, dude, you need to stop. Like, he would always put himself in the back burner and just always do what was necessary to make our network and everybody's lives easier up until the very end. And, you know, it's just one of the million reasons why he is who he is, and why we all love him so much. You know, he just had that ability to make every single person feel important, every single person feel valued, every single person feel loved. I mean, he brought Damon in with open arms, and you know, on the football side of things, that wasn't an easy transition for him, I'm sure. But, you know, through one game, you know, we're like, okay, this is it. This is the new norm. And, you know, we welcomed Damon in and made him feel like one of us and family. And, you know, that's because of Greg. He allowed everybody to feel that way. And, man, he was just a magical human. And I think anybody that knew him would echo that sentiment.
And I know for some people, maybe this is a little bit too inside baseball, but there's what happens with you guys at the network, and then there's an extra piece that happens before it gets to the listeners, unless they're listening on the Huskers app, which is always encouraged as well. There's the affiliates, and I was fortunate enough to work on that end for about 5 years with KLIN, always available. I still have them. I know you guys have probably done this over the last couple of days too. You look through your messages and the interactions, And I still have the messages of, all right, well, there's men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. Where are we going to be on Sunday? and it's okay, well, we're going to move you guys here. Great. Network wanted to know. All right, cool. And like he wanted to be the one to handle so many of those things. And it was appreciated on our end because we knew that meant our product was appreciated from the network. Like, it was such a good relationship at all times. And it really didn't matter who was in charge, who owned the contract, what it was. Greg was the face of what is Huskers Radio Network. Real quick, because we've got just a couple minutes left, and we're trying to stay somewhat consistent, even though we've blown out the entire show today, Ben, for good reason with Greg Sharpe in baseball. For you, is there a memory that jumps to mind as one of your favorites, whether you were in the booth with him or not, on just a call from Greg over the years?
Well, it's amplified by about 1 million now, but that Big Ten championship's hard to beat. There's been so many moments with him that I've just loved so much, and so many of those weird things, almost like a breakup. So many things remind me of him just on a daily basis. And anytime I see the words lunch special, I'm going to think of him. Just so many weird things. But, man, I don't know if we have time for this story, but I'm going to make it fast. So Big Ten championship, he shows up. He's not feeling well. Amy and him come inside because I want my wife and my daughter to see him. And something super simple, but we know our equipment's going to get super hot because the sun's beaming in on the field. And my daughter runs upstairs to get Greg her pink mini towel to cover the equipment so it doesn't get too hot. And just to see that interaction between my 4-year-old daughter and Greg just meant the absolute world. And he soldiered on. He got through that game and was exhausted. He didn't want to go down and see the team, but I'm like, you got to go down there and see the team. And he got that embrace with Will that's been captured via photo, and just in tears on the side. And we got to celebrate with the boys and some of the parents that were there. And that drive home that we had was just magical. I gave him a ride home, and even though I blew a tire out on the interstate, it was wonderful. And that game will mean so much to me. Not just because of the result, but knowing that was the last time we shared a headset together.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate you jumping on, sharing some of those memories, sharing your thoughts. Nick, obviously, we do this every Monday and Thursday now at 9 a.m., but thank you for being so open with all of that. I know Greg appreciated his time with you guys. We have appreciated getting to hear from you guys over the last few days with those games for Husker baseball. Looking forward to hearing from you guys again this afternoon and seeing where the heck this season leads. So again, to both to Ben and Nick, thank you guys so much for today.
Thank you so much. And again, for all the support from you and everybody else, it means the world. And all the messages, we read all of them. So thank you all so much.